From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast, a podcast for those who champion market growth and anchor the nation's economy, small businesses, and entrepreneurs.
All right, welcome everyone. Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook Podcast. I hate to break your hearts, but Greg Crabtree is not here today. He will be on the next one. You see, when you're the talent, you get called away. He was like, "Hey, I'll leave it up to you guys." So I apologize in advance for anything that might be said, but you're stuck with me and Brandon today.
Got the B team.
Yeah, Brandon, how you doing today, man?
Rolling along, I'm a few hours away from vacation, so just got to lock in and focus here another couple hours, finish it.
Are you going to LA? And by the way, for people listening, LA to us is Lower Alabama, so because that's where I'm headed on vacation.
I will be in LA for a few days.
There you go.
And we're headed over to the Panhandle, which everybody in Florida calls South Alabama. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's typical Alabama vacationing spot there. So you go there and you see all the same people, run into people, and we all literally left Alabama to go to Panhandle, Florida. So, well, awesome, man. So we got a lot of things to talk about. I know anyone who listened to the last podcast, we hit numbers pretty hard. Me and Brandon are going to really jump around on a lot of different business topics today, have some fun with it. The next podcast, when we get Greg back here, will be he'll be giving a market update. We'll tease the 100 company model a little bit today, talk about some hiring, and we'll see where all that takes us. But Brandon, why don't you kick us off? We were talking a little bit about sort of the hiring market, the labor market out there that we've been talking to clients. And for all those out there, if we were doing this like during the COVID time, the labor market discussion was insane, right? I mean, people couldn't find anybody. We're overpaying across the board. We got a little bit different of a picture now. And so Brandon, why don't you take it away and start us off?
Well, like Mike said, a little bit different environment from what we've seen over the past couple of years. You've got a lot of folks right now that adding labor is probably the last thing they need to do. We're having conversations about you need to get skinnier with your labor spend. We talked a lot about that last session in terms of getting profitable with what you have. But you are seeing two things take place. There are sectors to where there's growth. And we'll talk about this in the 100 company model, but anything that has an attachment to government spending, it's bonkers. I mean, it is wide open. So whether you have to be directly in government contracting. I mean, if you're just related to something that has a government spend effect to it somewhere downstream, you're probably seeing at least a pretty decent environment. We're seeing governments, municipalities, nonprofits, universities, schools, healthcare, those kind of things are kind of keeping a lot of activity going. Outside of that, especially the further you move up that discretionary service or product chain, is pretty tough. And so there's how that relates to the labor market. There's two things taking place. So you do have a group of companies that is actively pursuing labor and adding to their team because they are doing quite well. The second group is a group that's looking to top grade talent. So let me explain a little bit about what I mean by top grading. So you have let's say a C or a D player right now. And during 2020, 21, probably most of 22, you kept them around because you had to have a warm body. I was telling a client the other day, if the test for hiring during that time period was, could you fog a mirror? And if you could, we hired you. I even had clients that were questioning, do we have to change the drug policy? Because we can't hire anybody. Well, you hired some talent that probably isn't the best fit. And so now you're in an environment where you're going, okay, still need that position. It's still within my LER targets and ranges, but I want to top grade. I want to upgrade that position. I'm not looking to spend a lot more, but I'm wanting to get much more return on investment. And so you've got that group that's actively looking for labor. And so we've had several conversations about that on calls is why we decided we would kind of kick things off talking about it right now. And so the marketplace, there is talent available. Whenever you look at sectors that have been substantially impacted by the interest rate environment, they've had to let go of some good people. We've actually got a new team member that's starting on Monday, came from the mortgage industry. by all accounts, appears to be through the interview process or an A player, checked all the boxes, great interview. We would have not gotten that call or that resume 2 years ago. But because of the industry that they are in, they've become available. Another area is anything related to construction. So if you're looking for an ops manager, there's some really good folks who are project managers in the construction environment that are looking now. Sales, I'm going to touch base on that one a little bit more because that one's kind of tricky now. There are some decent salespeople available, but word of caution, when you're looking to trim up the sales spend inside your organization, you probably don't start with your top performer. So more on that in just a second.
I got one. I got a client in the HR space.
Mm-hmm.
Does a lot of work there, and said there's lots of unemployed HR people right now. Which sort of lends into play the overhead situation that
right.
that I'm sure we'll get into.
So so there are people who've been impacted that are great folks, A players, would make good hires for your company if you can stay within your profit targets, obviously by top grading or adding that labor that you can look to potentially add to your team right now. And so it's a little bit of a different mix. Now, that said, the overall demographic picture hasn't changed. And I'm sure you've heard us talk about it before. If you keep up with anything that's going on in the entrepreneurial community, we are in for a very difficult labor situation for the next 20 years. We know how many humans are going to be at work for the next 20 years. And with more and more baby boomers continuing to retire, that gap's just getting wider and wider. So I'm not saying it's easy. It's not going to be easy, but there is a little bit of talent that's become available. Well,
what's funny is it's prior to the whole pandemic situation, I felt like a lot of the things we talked about, we're back to talking about again, some of those principles, leveraging labor, obviously looking at your talent, your team. I think we sort of got spoiled by that just during the pandemic, having to sort of hold on to people, spend a little bit more than we used to. People got away from training programs, bringing up we talk about the career labor efficiency curve, bringing up people junior in their career, maybe
right.
Getting them trained up, working into that. These are all things that were talked about. And then the pandemic happened and it was guns a-blazing to get him on board.
I'll use us for an example. So up until, which can be hey, when all else fails, you can always serve as a bad example.
That's right. Yeah, we're good at that.
So that's a Greg Crabtree quote. So I would say probably prior to 2019, our interviewing process was, I would call it by the book. We subscribed to top grading and the process that was involved there. I mean, and we did day-long interviews. We did team meals and team dinners. We did the reference check, bring people back, run them through the ringer again. We did testing, not only for personality, but also skill sets. I mean, it was, you had to move heaven and earth to find someone, which was a good thing. Now, not saying we were perfect with all the hires that we made, but we felt that the process worked. We went to that. I remember, Mike, you and I were talking one day and we said, we have got to change the hiring process. Faster. Because by the time we got somebody through a phone screen, got them set up for an interview, and they found out it was an all-day interview, they're like, I got 4 other offers on the table. I don't have a full day to come in and talk, and we weren't the only ones that experienced that. So we changed it and went back to a much more condensed version of that. And now we're in a position to where it's kind of like, all right, we can now expand it a little bit again because, I had a client, this is the best example of just really how nuts the marketplace was. They're looking to hire an HR manager, and they looked for 2 months and they found someone. Sped up the interview process, made the offer. The person accepted. The next day, that person called back and said, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take back my acceptance of your offer. And they said, well, what happened? And they had someone who offered them close to 80% more in compensation.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We got a couple of people taken from us from that, remember?
Take it, because that does not fit within business physics, and they will have to make a change later. And, of course, they did. I mean, they were putting a Band-Aid on the problem. But nonetheless, you went through that whole evolution, and now, like Mike said, we're starting to get back on the other end of it just a little bit. So,
well, real quick, Brandon, also remember how we all talk in simple numbers world. during that time, and you all who've seen the 100 company model, seen us talk about it, you know that management labor is increased. And when you're increasing management labor, you're then going to have to increase the contribution margin and thus increase the revenue because you're adding that overhead and you got to pay for it. The issue is that during COVID, a lot of people hired and they brought on those big dollars, especially in the administrative area or the overhead area, managers, what have you. And the 100 company model profit is essentially flat from 2019, just bigger numbers. Well, what happens when you're still holding that dollars and sales aren't the same, or you're in an industry that can't get price increases anymore, or you're locked up? You're starting to see a lot of businesses there sort of running into that wall with that labor of, wow, we paid for that, and anymore we just can't generate the necessary contribution margin to get it up. And so that's why people are beginning to look at those labor buckets with a lot more scrutiny, because it's just, hey, especially if you're in an industry where you can't get price increases anymore, it's going to be difficult.
Well, you're buying hope,
right?
You're hoping the market's going to change, and each time you're spending those excess payroll dollars, that's a purchase of hope, and hope's gotten really expensive. And here's some folks that check they're writing for hope's about to bounce, and that's what's led to some of these folks finally making a shift. But I thought, let's share with you guys just a few things that we have seen with some of our clients as success stories, and kind of some tips and what have you, as you kind of look out there in the labor market and try to snag some A players or to upgrade your team a little bit. Some of the things that they're doing that, works. It's a little bit of a different game. Like we said earlier, it's changed. It's not like it was 2 years ago. It's not like it was 5 years ago, but it's still a pretty difficult marketplace. So, I'll kind of kick it off. Then Mike, you can feel free to jump in and share some examples. So I use a client that we've worked with for several years. They changed a couple of things relative to recruiting and attracting talent. So the first thing is that they changed their website to be based upon recruiting talent, not just a brochure that no one understood about their company. So don't get me off on that soapbox, but I mean, I don't know how many times we've brought in a new client. The first thing I do is go to the website to try to figure out what they do and a little bit about them. I'm more confused when I leave the website than when I got there, because they're now, granted, I'm from Alabama, but the language and the terminology they use to describe themselves makes no sense.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like,
I need crayons and construction paper.
At the end of the day, what do you do? And I can't get it from the website. So nonetheless, we'll talk about that on another podcast. But so they changed the website to be intended to attract talent. So they had videos on the website about what it was like to work there. What's a day in the life of XYZ team member. And they had other social media links and posts to where they were celebrating accomplishments, going out to ball games, the team things, the events, the retreats, all that was highlighted. They had descriptions about what the team was doing, why they liked working there, just like you would a testimonial from a customer, but it was directed toward attracting talent. So when you went to that site and you looked at it, you went, pretty cool group. I think I want to be a part of it. So that was one thing that they did. And if you don't have, and I'm not saying just the normal drop down about, want to join our team and it sends you to send an email. You got to have some content about that, because if I don't know anything about you, the website's probably the first place I'm going to go from that standpoint. The second thing they did is they changed their job, the ad, the post. So they actually made it much less stiff. So this was a home services company, and they rewrote the ad to kind of incorporate a little bit about who they were and what they were like. And it was a fun reading ad. They said they weren't some large national company. We're locally owned. This is what we do. This is what it's like to be here. They kind of, captured those phrases and the emotion behind it to where when you got done reading it, I was like, well, I might go to work for them. That sounds like a pretty good gig. And it stood out. You read through these job posts and these descriptions, and you're like, man, this is boring me to tears. And I don't want to do that 40 hours a week. So they were different. It stood out. So that was the second thing they did. So Mike, what have you seen with some of your folks?
So story time, Uncle Mike story time. But I'll keep this one clean.
This could be
for the
bad.
most part.
Make sure there are no kids on the podcast. Uncle Mike's story time.
I hope you're not. If you're listening to this with kids, well, if you are, they'll probably be asleep. So if you're on a drive, throw this on. We'll put them right to bed. But seriously, I had this guy. I can't remember how long ago. Client of ours, and he called me about some things. We talked some business, and I was telling him, I'm like, man, we're just having trouble hiring. I swear there's no one available. And he's like, don't give me that. And I go, excuse me, I'm telling you, we put out ads. He goes, no, don't give me that. He goes, how about this? You make the place the best effing damn place to work, and you'll never have a problem finding people. And he goes, here's what we do. And listen, what he did was not very exciting. Okay. But he always had candidates. He always, what he felt were top performers from what he added, and he made his place the best place to work. And so I have several clients right now that are using that piece of it. And while, what, like, it goes in line with Brandon said, they post on social media, they show the team, but what they're doing is making their own internal people recruiters. Hey, look how great it is to work here. We play well, or we pay well. We do fun things. Look how exciting it is. They've updated their website and their material to show that this is an employee-centered place that thrives on that. And so that's what they've done. I did a testimonial for one of our clients, which is so weird, right? I'm a business consultant and doing a testimonial for one of my clients, but he wanted me to speak to, hey, what did the numbers could tell about their business that I could speak about? And I think I said in my testimonial, I said, in my conversations with them and how they spend their money and how they direct it, it is so much to taking care of the people in their organization, and they become then advocates for them out in the community. And when they do things, so the employees are really involved and engaged, and it really helps at, I guess, the talent marketing process when you have advocates out there like that. And so several of my clients during this time where they're not really trying to hire a bunch of people, they've made the focus on building that culture, promoting how they've built that culture. And it's from all, what it seems to me like they find, solid people to hire.
Yep. I'm going to throw something else out that kind of is along those lines of taking care of your folks and what have you. Now, this is not a fit for everybody. So disclaimer with that, but I would challenge you to consider it and try to determine how you potentially could make it a fit. And much has been written about it. It's the 4-day work week. So client is in a physically intensive type of industry, providing services. You could use a 3-day weekend just to recover from what you do every week. So they went to 4-10s. Half the team's off on Friday, half the team's off on Monday. So they have coverage with their administrative teams and what have you, full 5 days of the week. It just kind of alters there, whether it's a Friday or a Monday. And if there's a weather event or something they can't work out, they're outdoors. And so if there's thunderstorms or what have you, then okay, we might pick up and work on Friday. Or if they get behind, Friday becomes an optional overtime day to catch up. And the same with Monday, depending upon what shift you're on. So they did it as a test, and with things like this, always roll it out as a limited time kind of test, see what's going to happen. Test went really, really well. They implemented it company-wide. So the retention increased substantially. The attraction of talent increased substantially. And the other thing they didn't see coming is they hired rock stars from their competitors, because their competitors looked around and went, I want a 3-day work week. So they brought it up at their company, and they said, well, no, 3-day weekend. There's just no way we can get everything done in 4 days. Operationally, it just won't work. So they went somewhere where it did. So a little bit of a tweak there and something like that, like I said, for a lot of folks. And I've had several other clients experiment with it, and I haven't had any that have went back. I'll put it that way. So,
well, the government contracting industry around here in Huntsville, they do a lot of the every other Friday off. Mm-hmm. That's that one. And that one seems to, be a good selling point with them. It's funny, isn't it? It's like the 4-day work. You all ever see something about Mary when he picks up the hitchhiker, and he's like, I got one. I got an idea. He goes, 7-minute abs. I got an idea. 6-minute abs. And it's like, so we got the 4-day work week, and then someone's going to be like, I got an idea. I got a 3-day work week. No, but no, seriously, around here, government contractors, all the big ones, Northrop, Lockheed, all of them are running that every other Friday off. It's another good one, good selling point for employees. Hey, 2 Fridays off a month. Gives you some time to get some stuff taken care of. I was also a fan of the unlimited PTO, things like that helps attract talent. I was always a fan of that, especially for certain levels. I think it's a good reward. If you have, employees like, hey, you get up to whatever your pay bands are, level 2 of something or what have you, unlimited PTO kicks in. Players like Brandon and myself, we're only going to take that trip down to LA, once a year and some other things around holidays. But
that's you see that across the board that folks are like, well, if I do unlimited PTO, no one will be at work. And what you find out is the folks who are not A players, they use plenty of it.
Yeah.
The folks who are A players, they'll use it sparingly because they're driven to get stuff done. So it's actually a pretty good little evaluation tool in some places. So,
I do like using it as a get-to spot, though. I'm not a fan of starting people off. Yeah.
No way.
Wait, you mean to tell me I can have off whenever I want?
Yeah,
I'm out.
You got to earn that one. So, but so those are a couple things. Like I said, if you're looking to attract talent. Now, in terms of the marketplace, I mentioned something a moment ago around the demographic picture and around particularly with sales folks. So yes, there are people available. But once again, keep in mind, if you're reducing labor, you're probably not cutting your A players first. That's round 2, 3, 4, 5 before you get that far down to making the reduction. So that said, word of caution, you're going to have to turn over a lot of rocks before you find somebody. So you do want to have speed in that screening process. You do want to make it move quickly so you kind of can sort through it and work through it. Great example, was on a phone call earlier this week with a client. They've experienced some rather rapid growth, which sounds good, especially for everybody out there who's growing like 2 to 5%. We're all kind of going, all right, man, rapid growth would be great. Well, rapid growth in an environment that's still really difficult to hire equals issues with the job performance. So they brought on a lot of new team members that were fairly green because that's about all they could come up with in the marketplace. And we're working on fixed price contracts that weren't performed correctly. So now they're getting to send the senior team members back to fix those issues, and of course can't bill for it. So you have to turn over a lot of rocks to find it. On the sales side of the house, if sales is not performing right now, that is an area that obviously you're looking to make changes in, because the most expensive salesperson isn't the one who has the highest comp. It's the one who's not producing gross margin for you. I mean, you add that up, you miss a couple sales, and now that's 3x their salary. So that said, the market does have a lot of underperforming salespeople out there. So do not trust the resume. If resumes only tell the good, as we all know. And once again, they're almost like websites for some companies. You get done reading the resume and you don't know what they said about themselves. But nonetheless, when it comes to adding a salesperson right now, be very skeptical. Not to say there's not a couple out there, but be very skeptical. And because I could write a book on the stories people have told about the next rock star, all saving salesperson that was going to come in who just happened to be available, who was going to cost a little bit more than you expected. And you bring them on board and find out, I don't think I got what I bought. So,
well, remember too, though, everyone, I think we might've talked about this a couple podcasts ago. And if we did, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't listen to it or probably don't remember. But when it comes to salespeople, a lot of times it's the alignment of sales and marketing that's a big deal. Like, okay, everyone, I do selling for us. I don't consider myself a sales guy. If you have talked to me, you could probably say I'm pretty awesome. But seriously, we have a great, what you would call alignment of marketing, right? I mean, Greg Crabtree goes out and speaks. He's got the books. Like, it's not like I'm knocking door to door and telling you, these.
You want to buy some simple numbers?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I'll tell you right now, if someone told me to go sell pharmaceuticals, I don't know if I could do. I mean, I don't know how that all works or anything like that. It's like I'm a partner here. I do consulting. I talk to potential clients about simple numbers. Well, some of these salespeople might be really great in an environment where marketing is really aligned, and they become almost like a closer, so to speak, instead
Mhm.
of like an actual like hunt and kill type salesperson. And so they actually might be really good in the environment they were in, kind of like quarterbacks in the football. I mean, you got system quarterbacks, right? Where hey, in that system they're great, and they go to another team, and it's all downhill from there. That's sort of like salespeople where they can get in a system and they're phenomenal, and then they obviously can go and they probably are really good. But the problem is if you're in a situation where your marketing's not really aligned and driving quality leads or really get your name out there, could be a situation where they have trouble. And so there's the onus on them to actually tell the truth about how what they can do and what they can't do, but it's also on you as a company to make sure you have a good alignment of your marketing to help that group out.
So let's shift gears a little bit here by way of quick recap. So we're talking about things you can do to attract talent if you are in an area where you're looking to top grade or you are growing. You know, website, make sure you've got space that's clearly dedicated to what it's like to be a part of your team, if that stands out because you are marketing to prospects there. You can take a little bit longer with the interview, do a little bit more thorough background check, all the things that we used to do. The market's affording us somewhat of that opportunity right now from where we were at earlier. Get creative around benefits and things you do for your team so they become advocates for you. We talked about the 4-day work week. Hybrid environments are obviously kind of a given in the current marketplace, those kind of things and what have you. So just, make yourself pretty. Think about it like I always equate it. Big football fan, right? So if you're trying to recruit one of the top athletes to your school, you're going to make sure everything looks nice and that you're staying in touch with them and doing everything you can to sell them on what it's going to be like to be there. Now, that said, let's say we make the hires. Let's shift gears here just a little bit. Because the marketplace is very difficult, do not put it on cruise control. So the market's changing very quickly. What was great today may not be great tomorrow. I told someone the other day, flat's the new up. So we got to be very cautious, but we've committed to spend. We bring them on. We have got to train very, very quickly. And y'all have heard me say it before. I believe the last untapped competitive advantage in the marketplace is your ability to quickly train and develop talent. And if you don't have testing as part of your training program, you're missing one of the key ingredients. Because I will tell you that people pay attention whenever they know their employment depends upon them passing a test. They're going to listen to the training. They're going to be active. And training can't be right around with Jimmy in the truck and he's going to show you everything to do. That takes too long, and you're relying upon Jimmy to do everything right. Process, procedures, videos, gamify it, create testing, set some targets as to how long you want it to take to get somebody up to speed. At the same time, know what's going to happen to your LER. So on a direct labor hire or addition, LER should very temporarily dip while they're training and then come right back up. It should be a very short little shift. If we're sitting here 4 or 5 months later and LER is still down because your new hires aren't performing, we got a problem. So monitor that very closely. If it's not working, it's not magically going to start to work. So go ahead and say, just your first loss is your least expensive loss. And that's a lesson from our building supply clients. Whenever the lumber market's changing and they buy OSB at $60 a sheet and it drops to 50, go ahead and sell it, because the next week it's going to drop to 40, then to 35. And the longer you hold out, the worse it's going to get. Same thing with team that's not performing. If they're not performing, go ahead and make a move. Now that's on the direct side. On the admin management side of the house, sometimes that takes a little bit longer to see the LER start to return, because you kind of think about the process. I bring them on. They're not a contributor. Now they're responsible for getting direct labor to perform. So they have to get in, be trained, learn the position, get direct labor to perform. Many times that means I'm growing gross margin dollars at the same time, which means I'm adding more direct labor. Got to get them to perform to then start to see the benefit. But know the target that you got to get back to. Before you hire, make sure you know what gross margin do I have to get back to cover this person, and what contribution margin, if they're admin management labor, I need to get back to in order to leverage this person again. And I don't hire anybody else till I get there. So if you don't know how to calculate those, holler at us. One of our consultants can pretty quickly create you a little calculator to show you here's where you got to get back to from that standpoint. But once again, market's tough. So if we see it turn on us, don't start buying hope. Let's go ahead and be nimble and make a shift.
And make sure too you have those key performance indicators. Obviously labor efficiency, if you're working with us, is one of them. But what are those triggers that let you know when to hire? Maybe you have to hire ahead. Right now we've been talking a lot about leveraging labor. Now is the time to bring it in. Here at Simple Numbers, we like labor efficiency too, obviously. But we talk about clients and client load of our team members. And so we have an idea of when we look at things of going, okay, now it's time to get the ad out. Let's get the person in. We can have all those things ready. So you're not really scrambling with those hires. Allows for when they come on board to sort of have them, ready to go. You don't want to be either too far behind or too far ahead of when you have to hire. And then you sort of just put them in a bad spot when they come on. We're bringing on a person here that start next week, and lo and behold, me and Brandon will be out. So,
good luck.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like go. It's funny how we're talking about this, and then that happens.
So along those lines, Mike, as you kind of just talking about having an activity metric, you want to have that paired with LER. So, like for us, it might be client load. Or it could be models that are being updated. For somebody else, it may be hours they're working or projects they're managing. If you're seeing that labor efficiency is declining or staying flat, but your metric of activity is increasing, there's a red flag that should be going up, obviously. So that tells me, okay, is my pricing off because I've had to increase wages due to wage inflation, which means my labor efficiency is coming down. I wasn't able to pass that on in pricing. So, in order to try to make up for it, we're pushing volume. Well, you can only run so fast. And so that could perhaps be one of those. It could also mean that there's inefficiency there. So I look at my LER and it's not where it should be, but my project load's pretty high. Well, why aren't we getting through them? Now, I'll tell you right now, on the sales side of the house, you may look at your sales team and they're running every which way to Sunday, but there's not any accomplishment. It's because the pipeline has become one of the least reliable metrics in determining where things are moving and sales forecast, what it'll look like. And that's what we've always relied upon. The better indicator is pipeline compared to days to close. Because I was with a client yesterday and he said, he's got a substantial job, a huge job. He said, I've got another phone call about this job getting up and going. He said, and I'm tired of it. It's either got to start or not start. I mean, this is a huge opportunity. And he's at kind of like his wit's end of dealing with it because it's gotten pushed. And so you lose the ability to have an idea of, okay, pipeline looks like this, but when's it actually going to come through the cycle? So that's another thing that you got to be careful of, because as you look at adding labor, you look at your pipeline and go, well, we got to add labor. We got all this work upcoming. Well, if you're seeing a substantial uptick in days to close, you don't have to add it yet, because that project you just bid on that you thought was starting in 6 weeks is actually probably going to be 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, So to Mike's point, kind of know what that side looks like too, in order to forecast when I've got to look to make the hires. Fun environment we're in. Here's a teaser for the 100 company model. So I had a client say this the other day and they nailed it. And I wish sometimes you guys could just, I'd love to be able to show a call so you could just watch the body language without hearing any of the words, because it's things like, man, we grind, we work really hard, we find process improvement, we watch our overtime spend, we upgrade our team, we gain some efficiency. And then we get the renewal for our insurance and it's up over 10%. Or it goes from $50,000 a year to $250,000 a year. That's another one of those that I've seen lately. And it's like, well, all the work I just did is now gone. And it's kind of like working twice as hard to get the same result as what our client said yesterday. So there's your teaser for the 100 company model. So when you're listening to the next one, we're going to show you the data behind that. But I'm telling you, it's call after call after call we get on to where people are just tired. We have been punching this monster now since the middle of 2022, and it is just not giving.
I was in the depths of the internet today. Just had a second. That can happen. You just
can go down a
start
rabbit
scrolling.
hole. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We won't bring up pyramids and aliens and stuff, but we'll talk about that. Maybe me and Brandon start a separate podcast outside of business, talk about that. But this guy, I mean, I'm just going to take his word for it. Inflation. I mean, it's the internet. I don't believe everything, but he basically ordered the same cart he did from Amazon 2 years ago. And, because you can go through in a lot of these apps and reorder your cart of what you've had or redo that order. And he had spent, it was like $125, and he reordered the same one 2 years later. It was like $400. So whatever, I don't know what he had in there or what have you. But
he's
costs are
probably
going up.
a Prime member, and the algorithm picked up on it and they jacked up the price.
I think it was Walmart. I think it was the
conspiracy
Walmart
theory
card he
there.
ordered. I think it was the Walmart card he ordered there. Hey,
Yeah.
Walmart I can't walk out of Walmart without, a couple
The
$100.
Walmart app is decent.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah.
Anyway, so like I said, marketplace, there is some opportunity, there is some talent available. You got to attract it. Be careful in doing so. Know what it's going to take to get back to where you need gross margin, contribution margin wise. Have a very tight leash on that labor as you do add it. Because if I got to put this sucker in reverse, we need to do so pretty quickly because the market is volatile. As you look at forecasting hiring, don't trust your pipeline. You got to put pipeline with days to close and kind of look at the average then of what we could realistically expect and how long it's pushing and where it's trending from that standpoint. And the market's just not giving. And as we said, we'll talk more about that in the 100 company model. But I'm telling you, it is unless you're involved in this government spending fund, it is tough. It's really tough. But hey, entrepreneurs adapt and overcome. We're going to figure it out. And the one good thing is even though it's tough, I think the 100 company model is like at 5-6% profit, something like that. We're not negative. We're still moving. We're just not moving very fast in terms of overall profitability. So we'll dive into some of that.
Well, and remember this though, it's 70% of the companies are growing revenue, rolling 12 year over year. Their revenue's growing up, and their profit again at that number. But so is the 30% that is declining, but that 30% that's declining in revenue, that's having that tough side, that tough on the sales side. Again, industries, you got that K-shaped economy. They've improved their margin. They've reduced labor. They're not just laying people off. They're doing what Brandon talked about. They're top grading their own internal resources. If someone leaves, they might not replace them. They're trying to pick that up. They've cut unnecessary expenses, and so they just have to handle it differently. Yeah, but they are making it, and there is meat there on the bone for them to shave off to really get their make themselves stable through this. And listen, it's not always going to be perfect. We all know that. And so this is a good spot for them to continue to be that they're able to improve those things while they're waiting for sales to sort of turn around. Awesome.
Cool.
Brandon, you got anything else? I think that's enough. I think we went about close to 40 minutes.
I think we went a little bit over, but I think that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you don't know how to calculate that gross margin and contribution margin target whenever you're looking to add labor, let us know. Because that's a real key, because there have been more than one conversations as of late to where somebody's like, well, we're looking to add this person or top grade this person or what have you. And I go, okay, here's what you got to get to. And they go, well, that was a good idea, but we're not moving because we can't get there. So know the number before you make the commitment.
Awesome. Great. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us. For Brandon, I'm Mike, and we'll see you next time, and hopefully we'll have Greg Crabtree on here. See you all later.
Awesome. See you guys.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business, or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. The views expressed on Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers podcast, are those of the presenter and moderator and do not necessarily reflect the views of CRI Simple Numbers or the CRI family of companies. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional advice received directly. Consult with your CRI Simple Numbers advisor or another trusted professional if you have questions about your specific situation.